Hey, what's up guys? Welcome back to another video, and in this video we're going to be continuing on with our C# programming tutorial series, and in this particular tutorial we are going to be taking a look at how we can define classes in C#. Now, what are classes? Well, classes are things that represent an object in C#. And an object is generally something that is that's a representation of a noun. So a person, a place, a thing, whatever the case might be, those are generally classes and objects. Classes is a concept in object-oriented programming, which is a type of programming paradigm that relies on classes and methods in those classes and inheritance and all kinds of other different concepts. You can go and find various resources out there on the web that explain a little bit more what object-oriented programming is. We'll take a look at at bits and pieces of object-oriented programming as we move forward. Because C# is predominantly a object-oriented programming language, so you are going to want to understand object-oriented programming even at a minimal level in order to use it effectively. But I highly encourage you to take a dive into what exactly object-oriented programming is at a deeper level so you can better appreciate the concepts that we're going to learn going forward, and so you have a better understanding of how the language actually works. Right? So, how do we define a class in C#? Well, that's actually pretty simple. So if we go into our code, we can create a class by using the class keyword. So we're going to create a class called rectangle. And this rectangle is going to have what are called members. These members are going to particularly include what are called fields and properties. Now, there are different members that can be specified in a class, but these are the two types of members that we're going to take a look at in this particular video. Later on, we'll take a look at some of the other types of members that a class can have. So, to create a class in your code, go ahead and say class rectangle. Notice how the class name has a uppercase R instead of a lowercase. That is the standard. The standard naming convention for classes is Pascal case, not camel case like for variables. Okay? And then you have to open it up with opening and closing curly brackets, because classes need to have a body like this. Now, for fields in a class, those are typically prefixed with the private keyword. Now, what does private mean? Well, private basically means that this thing that's marked as private, in this case what's called a field, is only accessible within the class itself. So we can mark it as private. This will be a decimal. And fields are generally, their names are, generally speaking, this is not exactly a standard coding convention, but a lot of people do use it like this. They're usually the names are prefixed with usually a underscore, like this. Microsoft uses this as well, so if you want to follow what they do, there you go. then we can have capital W IDTH. Now, why do I have a capital W here? Well, the thing is, the convention for fields and properties is that the actual names for these, like width, height, whatever, those should typically start with an uppercase letter. The casing has to be Pascal case. Now, this isn't strictly enforced. Your code will still compile if you do it differently. It's just a stylistic thing. And I generally like to follow these practices because it makes my code easier to read, and it helps other programmers understand, your code base, because your code is consistent throughout if you follow these conventions. Let's create another field called height. Private decimal underscore height, like that. Cool. Now, how do we create properties? Because we need properties for this. If we can't set these, we can't get and set the values for our fields because they're marked as private. Well, that is where properties come in. Properties are usually always marked as public, and these public basically means anything can access it as long as there's an object of, for example, the class that's been created already. So to create properties, we can say public and width. So you can see we don't include an underscore with our properties. We just say public decimal width, or whatever the case might be. Decimal width. Now what we're going to do is we're also going to give the property a body. So do an opening and closing curly brace, like that. Okay. Then we're going to have what's called an accessor. Properties generally have accessors for get and set. If you just want it to be read-only, then just provide a get and don't provide a set. But we're going to provide both get and set. So for get, just do GET. And again, open that with curly braces. And then inside of the get, we can just say return underscore width, like that. Now, what does the return mean? Well, the return keyword basically says, hey, use this value and give it to the user that tries to access this property. Now we can do our set accessor. So set, open that up. And for that, we need to do something a little bit different. And that is, we need to say underscore height, or not height, width, underscore width equals value. Now, what does this value mean? What is this value? We're not specifying this anywhere. We don't have this defined anywhere or anything like that. Well, C# gives you this value variable automatically. And this represents the value that the user sets for this property. And we'll take a look at that when we actually create a rectangle object and set the property for it. But now, now that we have our property defined, I just want to make sure that we're doing everything here. Okay. Now let's go ahead and let's quickly do our height. So public decimal height get return underscore height set underscore height equals value, like that. We can also create another property for getting, for the area and perimeter. These will be read only, so you can't set them. They won't have a set, they'll only have a get. Public decimal area get return underscore width times underscore height, like that. Public decimal perimeter get return 2 times underscore width plus 2 times underscore height, like that. All right. And so that is our rectangle class. We have 4 properties and 2 fields. We have properties for the width and the height, and then we have properties for the area and perimeter. We also have the 2 fields that are underscore width and underscore height. Everything is a decimal in this class because generally that's just what I chose. Now, how do we create an object of rectangle? Well, at the top of our file here, we're going to do what's called instantiate an object, which is just creating a new object. And to do that, we can say rectangle, we'll call it R, equals a new rectangle with opening and closing parentheses like that. Okay, so this is instantiating a new object of a rectangle. And we can go and print out these different properties. We can set them, we can get them, all that stuff. So let's say r dot width equals, let's say 15, and r dot height equals, let's say 40. Okay? And then we can do a console.writeLine and then here we'll have a rectangle with a width of 0 and a height of 1 has an area of curly brace 2 and a perimeter of 3. So here we can say r dot width, r dot height, r dot area, and r dot perimeter, like that. Okay, that's okay. Yep. Okay. Okay, we should be okay now. So if we go ahead and run our code, we can say .NET run . There we go. We get all the values printed out in a string like that. So this shows you how you can create a new object of a class, how you can create a class, how you can set properties, which in turn will set the values of the internal fields, and then how you can get the properties of a class, which in turn retrieve the values of those fields. And this is a very, very standard way of doing things in C#. There are other ways of doing it, and we'll take a look at those as we go forward. But this is, generally speaking, the standard way of doing it. As I said, there's other syntactic sugar ways that we can do it, but this is just the beginning. Okay, so that pretty much does it for this video on classes, fields, and properties. Thank you all so very much for watching, and we'll see you in the next video.